Hey Nye County, it's your friendly local bail bondsman here, Matt Sadler, just wanting to remind you about the 2023 Lincoln Day Dinner. It's coming up very soon, Saturday, February 11th, 6 p.m., Pahrump Nugget, $75 per person. The tickets are limited and will only be on sale temporarily, so please, if you can, get details at thenevadapatriot.com. It'll give you information on who to call or how to go ahead and reserve your ticket through Eventbrite. Again, the 2023 Lincoln Day Dinner is coming up fast, February 11th. It is brought to you and hosted by the Pahrump Valley Republican Women. Thank you. Exciting stuff for you today. Here with me in the Nevada Patriot Podcast studio, we have Dan and Nancy Blackstone with Blackstone Gun Safety. Stay tuned.
Attention, Southern Nevadans. Turn up that dial for some real talk about the issues that matter to us. From some of our Valley's local leaders, business owners, and even the occasional elected official. Airing now on incredibly intelligent local radio stations and streaming worldwide at thenevadapatriot.com. Welcome to the Nevada Patriot Podcast with Matt Sadler.
Welcome to the Nevada Patriot Podcast. I finally get to have my good friends, Dan and Nancy Blackstone, on the podcast. I'm Matt Sadler, as usual, your host, and we're going to talk about Blackstone Gun Safety. It's a wonderful blessing to our Nye County community, and we're going to get to know the wonderful owners a bit more. So many of our listeners are probably already familiar with the name Blackstone, but I'm excited to see where our talk goes today. So pleased to finally have you, Dan and Nancy. Welcome to the show, and tell the audience about yourselves.
Thank you very much, Matt.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Yeah, so why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about, your journey, kind of what brought you to the Pahrump area and how life has been turning out for you guys out here.
How life turned out for me. I was born and raised in Southern California.
Yeah.
And in 2018, I packed my little brown paper sack and moved to Oregon. And in
1987.
1987, what did I say?
We moved here in 2018.
Whatever, yeah. All right, in 2010, we started Blackstone Gun Safety in Oregon. And we taught concealed carry classes and live fire shooting, and we were very blessed and grew to be the largest trainer in the state of Oregon.
Nice.
And in 2018, we decided to sell the business and retire and come to Pahrump.
So had you had experience visiting as tourists or things like that in Southern Nevada prior to moving, or?
We had been to Front Sight.
Oh, okay.
Several times.
Yeah.
And we used to bring down people, 30, 40, 50 people at a time.
Yeah.
And go to Front Sight and take the 4-day defensive handgun class. And so it actually was Nancy's idea. She said, why don't we move to Pahrump? I said, what?
Which was pretty funny because I shouldn't say this. I always made fun of little Pahrump when we visited.
Yeah, right.
And here we are. But we love it.
Yeah, and it's sprawling a bit. It's grown a lot. I think you guys have moved out here. You had moved out here a little bit before me then. So our family moved out here in 2019. And I remember you guys were some of the first friendly faces we met. I think we met at one of the festivals, the Fall Festival,
Fall Fest.
in 2019. And I appreciate it. How gracious you guys have been to our family over the years as well. So as a side note, we're definitely friends outside of here. We attend the same church services on weekends, and you guys were an encouraging force for me when I ran for office out here, and I just want to give you guys a shout out for that, and I appreciate the encouragement because it is a rocky road, and we've always looked up to you since pretty much the day that we met you.
Oh, well,
I had no idea from meeting you that you hadn't been here as long because the name already had resonated with Sharon and I just immediately after we moved here. So we figured you guys were a staple of this community before that. So whatever you did when you moved in here.
2018, actually we moved here. We didn't teach right off the bat. We were going to retire. And then we got tired of sitting around doing nothing. Yeah. And so we looked at each other and went, we want to start teaching again. And the deal was with the guy that we sold it to that we could have Nevada.
Oh, okay.
And so we started teaching, and I asked him if we could use the same name, and he said, yeah, it just makes us look bigger. So
so the black, okay, so I'm learning new something. I didn't realize that it's still keeping on there in
Oregon has Blackstone Gun Safety up there.
Okay.
And then we have Blackstone Gun Safety here. Now, we always add and say Blackstone Gun Safety Nevada just so people know.
Yeah.
But, if you go and if you Google or you go on to BlackstoneGunSafety.com, you'll get the one in Oregon.
Oh, okay.
That's why we use bgsnevada.com.
Okay, so that website again, bgsnevada.com, listeners. Okay.
So we actually launched at Fall Fest the year we met you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was when we launched it.
And I'm wondering then how I might have known the name so easily. I guess, I don't know.
Probably a van running around with the name on the side of it.
Probably then. Yeah. Definitely weren't one of my customers at the Bell Bonds office, which is a good thing. So it wasn't from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't want to turn our show into a huge politics thing, but I want to let the listeners know, how important certain issues are, and you guys in the industry that you're in and the industry I'm in, policies affect our rights and our day-to-day lives. So how is the current political climate? Would you say how would you say it's affecting your business, for instance? And what are your thoughts about what the leaders
here
are
in
doing?
Nevada? I don't think it's hurting us too much. Nevada is still very conservative. Has got pretty good gun laws overall. If you look at the entire country, Oregon went to pot. Matter of fact, the guy that bought the business from me in Oregon was just about ready to shut it down.
Really?
Because the laws are so bad up there. It's going to be worse in California if everything goes through. But here it's pretty good. I think getting a Republican governor in makes me feel more comfortable than where it was.
Yeah, it's a stopgap. I think it's a buffer at least from some of the craziness getting at least passed forward. It's a shame. I wish the governor could go in there and veto some of the things that have gone off the rails in past sessions. But really, what he's there for now, I think, is to be that bully pulpit to kind of push, hopefully messages of limited government and things like that out there, and reverence for the Constitution. So, I know in our party, in the Republican Party, many people that kind of subscribe to the brand, I call them professing Republicans, aren't necessarily, backing it up. So, brings us to maybe local politics as well. So I don't know what your thoughts are on, for instance, the big issue about guns in the courtroom, things like that. Have you felt any reverberation in your business, or has there been reactions with more people registering for classes due to certain events happening? Whether it's mass shootings, the rioting that happened a few summers ago, things like that. Do you actually receive an uptick when basically places with horrible policies have horrible outcomes, and then people respond in kind, and it might solicit your services?
We do. Matter of fact, I'll let Nancy tell the story about the gal that came to class because of the. Remember?
Oh, well, the couple that was in St. Louis on their yard with Ian and AR, and she was waving the glass.
I remember that
gun around. Yeah. So we had a lady call, and she wanted to get training, not to protect herself, but because she didn't want to be on TV like that crazy woman and make a fool of herself.
Oh.
So that was sort of an extreme example. Yeah. But we do have a surprising number of people say, I never really thought about having a gun before. It just didn't occur to me, or I never really wanted to.
Yeah.
They don't feel safe anymore, and they're realizing that you're responsible for your own protection, and they need to get some training.
Because we're seeing we live in a very information age where that, and unfortunately, bad news travels a little bit faster than good news. Yes. And when you're seeing things on social media or through even news television shows, that bad news is out there, and it's incumbent to battle for our Second Amendment rights, and because. We're our main line of defense, honestly.
Well, and people are afraid.
Yeah.
They're afraid now. And they're realizing that, you may have seconds to deal with the situation.
Yeah.
And whatever's not going to let you call for help, they're not going to,
Right.
It's up to you.
The perpetrator's not going to hit the pause button and let you kind of gather the information and call for backup. Yeah.
Sadly, there is evil in the world, and I believe our world is becoming more unsafe all the time.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm wholeheartedly in agreement with that. As a Bible-believing Christian, my wife and I, you wrestle with that fact in the beginning that all men are evil, all people, until until your heart's changed, basically, and you can do good again. And with that being said, how does your faith, how does that aspect of it inform your business and your business practices on how you deal with clients and the like?
Oh, that's a good question.
Well, because there is evil in the world.
Right.
And, I certainly hope I never would have to shoot someone.
Right.
But if someone's doing an evil thing and they're harming or trying to kill, even somebody I don't know, I think I have a moral obligation to stop that.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what more and more people are coming to, who want to take the class, who want to, and who want to do follow-up training.
Yeah, and it would probably do the world a good service if our media would give us the entire story of things that are happening instead of picking and choosing what events to highlight, because I don't know what the statistics are on it. Maybe you guys know better than me, but about how many times compared to bad uses of weapons, a good guy with a gun using their weapon for a positive outcome far outweighs that in our culture.
Yes.
They do. Guns do more good than they do harm, but you just don't hear about that.
Yeah.
I have a fire extinguisher, I have a first aid kit, and I have a firearm, and I hope I never need any of them.
That's true. Good point.
But I have all of them.
Yeah.
In case I do need them, because if you get to a point where you need a gun and you don't have it,
right,
you're probably never going to need it again.
Yeah.
Well, and because you have your firearm, or even if you have to draw your firearm and don't fire it, but you stop the situation.
Yes.
Well, that's not exciting. Nobody's going to report that.
Right, and how many of those situations
exactly
probably
way
happens on the
more
daily everywhere in different states, for sure.
And the thing is, with people, a lot of people come and get their concealed carry license, and then they don't practice and they don't take the training they need.
That's true.
And that is very dangerous.
Yeah, it would be like taking a good driving test, knowing all these attributes, and then deciding you're not going to drive a vehicle for 20 years.
Exactly.
And then go into a car race or something, and you're going to fall on your face.
And shooting a handgun is a perishable skill. You lose it real fast.
Yeah.
I tell my students you should be out shooting a box of ammo every month. I know they don't, but they should.
Right. So how has that been going? I know that was one of the, you're always keeping track of, I don't want to call people enemies per se in the political realm, but you have another side, another ideology that is constantly seeking to undermine that aspect of our Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment. And I know ammunition was going to be one of their targets probably in the near future, as far as whether it's taxing or limitations or different things like that. Are you seeing that affecting your business, or anything happening drastically now that's changed?
Price of ammo's come down.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. And there's no way to track it.
It's kind of across the board.
You can do, across the board.
A little bit down.
I shoot a lot of 9mm, so I use that as my, test.
Yeah.
And it got really expensive. I mean, before, way back, I was buying, 1,000 rounds for less than $200. It's not down to that, but I think I saw it at 2.5.
Well, that's actually,
and it was up way over 500.
Yeah, that's encouraging
for a while. So it's a good price. And California's got the problem where you got to go through a bunch of hoops to even buy ammo now. So that's.
Yeah, I figured that was what they were going to do to kind of eviscerate, people's rights, is kind of the back door, the back channel to kind of stomp it out. Well, I'm at least happy to hear that at least in our immediate area in Nevada, it's still not difficult to get your ammo. And I know you touched on Front Sight earlier, or what was formerly Front Sight. Now they're under new ownership under Prairie Fire. So, what are your thoughts on the new ownership or the prospects of things happening? I know that's a really big topic in Pahrump. A lot of folks are very interested in that situation with Prairie Fire over there.
There still seem to be a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
And we haven't quite taken a position yet.
Gotcha.
We're watching.
We had, when we were at was it the Fall Fest? It wasn't the Fall Fest, was it? Or was it? Yeah, it was.
Fall Fest.
At the Fall Festival, I met the CEO. His name was Bill Wilson.
Right, yeah, I met Bill.
And spent a lot of time with him, talking to him feeling me out, because, I've got time on my hands, and I thought maybe working there with them part-time would be a fun thing to do. And we really hit it off, and I was excited about what he was doing, the thoughts he had, and things to do. And then I find out, first part of December, he's gone.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that because I had actually texted him to be a guest on the show back then, sometime in the month of January. He said he'd get back to me, and this might be why.
He's gone.
Oh, wow.
I think there's a guy named Craig, I can't remember his last name, who is, I think, the CEO now.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Nancy and I actually went out there about a week and a half ago, and there was not very many people there.
Because in our talks, I don't know if he spoke to you about it, but he was, kind of saying that they want to hopefully be an asset that can come alongside even our Nye County Sheriff's Office to sort of even help our deputies out and we're, for different types of training and things like that. So I was really hoping that, and I still hope that could be something that happens, because the facility itself is pretty world class, and it would be good to have some of our deputies and getting some of that training in a great area.
If they do everything they say they're going to, and I have no reason to think they won't, it should be really a huge asset to Pahrump.
Yeah.
And the gun industry.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Bill's goal was to make the facility here what Augusta is to golf.
Yeah. And I think I did mention him say something like that.
And
before.
You know what? The facility is beautiful. It's fantastic. But it's expensive to run.
Because they were talking about making it into a world class RV type resort built onto at least either their property or an adjoining property, and have it just
they've got 550
big destination.
They got 550 acres. They're not using even half of it.
Yeah, it's giant.
So they've got a lot of them, and I think they're calling it stagecoach,
stagecoach or stage post or something
for all the homes and RV and all that. But it almost sounds like the same kind of a plan that Piazza had.
That's what I worry about sometimes when something sounds a little bit too lofty or too good to be true.
Thing.
And there's two. I've heard people say that he has nothing to do with it. He's not at all.
I hope not.
And I've other people say, yeah, he is.
Right.
So
I know bankruptcy can be sticky, though.
We're watching.
Yeah, and I think it's worth our scrutiny, and that's why I had to ask you guys, because you'd probably be more in the know than me or most people.
We try to find out, but it's hard to find out. I mean, I went in there, and when I asked the girls, I won't mention her name, but I said, who's actually in charge out here? And she said, I don't know.
Oh, as far as like day-to-day operations, like general management and stuff like that.
So they're still feeling their way through.
Yeah, because it hasn't been a long time, but I was hoping maybe they were going to take off.
I think their grand opening, Matt, is in April.
Sometime in April, because they're refurbishing. They're working on the pro shop and the classroom, and they're upgrading the facility.
Yeah,
because it was getting a little old looking.
Yeah, I would say the aptitude of that place, so the potential is huge. And like when he was talking about that stuff, it made a lot of sense, because I actually heard him talking about that to make it, as far as like a big event where it'd be shooting competitions with really huge cash prizes and drawing media attention, and maybe
I love his vision was great.
It was,
wasn't it?
And to me, like I have to deal with people's BS on a daily to figure out if people are BSing me. Yeah. He passed all those those tests with me, so I was really encouraged, and I figured he was just too busy doing cool stuff to talk to my lowly podcast.
I don't know what happened. I mean, I really don't. I don't know if he was fired or if he quit, or I just don't know. But because he told me as soon as they were bought it, he was going to bring his motorhome here as a trailer and live here. I mean,
he planned on setting up shop.
He gave me a cell number. Well, he gave it to you too.
I think he did.
And
it was a 775
number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
his intention seemed like he wanted to assimilate and just get into the community out here and embed himself. So I wish him well. He was
we'll see.
A fascinating guy with good this military hit, like just hearing some of his what little stories he was able to disseminate to me. I'm like, wow, I could probably ask you questions for hours.
Oh yeah. He was a SEAL trainer.
Yeah, so he's like a big deal.
Yeah.
And going on a little bit of some of the stuff that you guys offer at Blackstone. We'll get back to a little bit of that here. I know a lot of it revolves around the CCW training, but you also do other things if you wanted to.
We do live fire training one-on-one. And we do the HR 218 for retired police officers also. And we also build custom Kydex holsters.
Yeah.
For people. But
and we have an AR class. If somebody buys one and has no idea what to do with it, which happens way more than you'd think. We have a AR 101, so we field strip it, sight it for you. We'll go out and shoot, teach you how to run the gun. Yeah, so just to dispel some of the rumors out there, I mean, if people are getting their information from CNN or other types of outfits, like, can you tell the listeners that a weapon like that is something suitable even for a lady, for instance? Absolutely. It's very easy to shoot. I love my AR. And it is not an assault rifle. It's an Armalite rifle. Yeah, you hear that, Geraldo?
News media can adapt.
He just stepped in it, like a week ago he said that on actual live TV. Yeah. So get it together.
It's a great gun. It's a great platform. It really runs. I mean, it works well.
Because I would say, like, if it's a gun that you can reasonably carry, that you can shoot accurately and reliably, isn't that really the point of it in this war that you see sometimes the media has against, say, a weapon like an AR-15? If my wife were to shoot a weapon, I'd want her to be able to aim it effectively, hit the target that she's trying to hit, not just run around with a 45 just blasting rounds off. You'd want it to be something that's manageable, and I think a weapon like that, from what I've seen, is completely manageable. They're scary looking because like the barrel shroud that scares everybody in the front. Right. That's basically, it's a pot holder to keep you from burning your hand on the barrel. Yeah. I mean, it's actually there to make you more comfortable, not to scare you more. It doesn't make the gun shootier, I promise.
Well, when the military put the order out they wanted a gun that was a smaller caliber but high powered, that had to weigh a certain amount of pounds, because at that time the military was still using some of the M1 carbines and the M14. When I was in the Army, I was using the M14. The M16 had come out, but in Vietnam they were having a lot of trouble with it, a lot of jamming, so some of the soldiers were reverting to the M14. Okay. The AR-15 is a knockoff of the M16. The AR-15 does not shoot fully automatic. Right. Like the M16 a lot of misinformation out there. Yeah. Right. But it's a great platform and it works well, and all the bugs are worked out of it by now. Yeah. It's like the old 350 Chevy, right? If you have to build it long enough, you get it where it's perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. And the AR-15 is an awesome gun. And of course, now there's the AR-10, which is just a bigger caliber of the same platform. It's just a great gun all around. Yeah, is that a weapon that you would, other than maybe a smaller, pistol or a smaller caliber handgun, but is that one that you'd recommend for many people that are? Well, the AR pistol is I think been banned now, just recently. Yeah. Which is stupid because the ATF said it was okay, and then they said it's not okay, and I guess back and forth. So we'll see where that goes. Just like the same thing with ghost guns. Right. I think they're illegal now, but probably a lot of people have them. Yeah. But handguns were more our specialty, Matt, because handguns are so much harder to shoot than rifles. Yeah. And I have a lot of people ask me, what kind of handgun should I carry? You carry the handgun you can hit the target with. Yeah. That's what's important. It's more important than the caliber. Right. Well, and we try to have people come and shoot some different guns before they buy one, because so often it feels good in your hand, but you don't like to shoot it. Yeah. So, ladies, don't let anybody tell you what to buy. Right. Yeah, I know with our neighbor next door here, my wife and I went in there and we were testing some different grips and things like that. And in just the amount of knowledge that was able to be imparted upon, how it should fit in your hand, how much extra room you should have in front of your forefinger, how your fingers, just to be able to tell you, that handle doesn't work for you. And I think most people might not even understand that. And even with the bigger caliber gun, ended up fitting Sharon's with the right kind of gun, with the right kind of fit, it can still work. And a lot of the guns now come with multiple grips. Yeah. A lot of them, they're starting to do that more and more. So you
kind
can
of
make the grips larger. And they're making more guns now for women. Nancy just recently bought one. It was specifically designed for a woman. But for guys with small hands, it works great too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually changed the design of the gun. They didn't just paint it pink.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think
Sadly,
for a while that was that became the ladies' firearm, just a different paint color.
Yeah, right.
And speaking of that too, did you guys offer classes like kind of exclusively for ladies training? Because I know there's certain things in life that women might not always feel comfortable being around other men doing, or is that something that
we don't do a ladies only CCW, but we usually run about a third to a quarter to a third of our classes are ladies.
Well, that's actually because that's maybe a fear for women. I want to be the only woman in the class, so that's good
because I'm on the range too.
Yeah, that helps.
But I do have a couple of classes that I do once in a while for ladies, just gun 101, no shooting, just getting comfortable with.
Yeah.
Learning about the guns and how they work and getting comfortable holding it. We'll take it down and put it back together. And then if they want to proceed, then we'll go shoot.
Difference in revolvers and semis and how women can carry
gun 101.
A lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
And they seem to love the class.
And then I also have one of how to carry. And if you're going to carry it, how are you going to get it out?
Right.
Because I had 3 ladies in one class who had guns in their purses and had never thought about how do you draw it.
Yeah. Because like you said, you're not going to have a minute sometimes. You're talking seconds.
You can't fumble. You've got to get it out.
You have to practice.
And it's out of a purse is a very different draw, just like, appendix carry is a different. You have to practice.
Yeah.
You have to think about it.
You have to just get that muscle memory of because when push comes to shove, if you're in that stressful situation, just the stress of the mental on you is going to.
When I remember, I went to a lot of front sight classes, a 4-day handgun, and you know what? Every time I went, I learned something. So you can keep taking the same classes over and over and still keep learning. And I remember one of the instructors said the best that you're going to do in a gunfight is absolute best is half of your best day on the range.
Really?
That's the best. And most of the time, you're going to shoot worse than you ever shot on the range because your stress level goes off the charts.
Yeah, they're going.
We've had a couple of friends of prior students that have had to one has had to actually draw his gun and need it, didn't shoot it, and another one was almost ready to. And it takes about 4 or 5 hours for them to stop shaking.
I bet. Yeah.
Without even shooting somebody.
Yeah.
Just because of your adrenaline gets going. It's pretty stressful.
And it's very hard to replicate that. I mean, maybe in the military with some of the training you might have had, maybe they try to put you in stressful situations with, maybe rounds going off or different things like that to kind of get you more used to it. But it's very hard to replicate real life stress situations.
Exactly.
And you have to be so proficient at it, because like you said, if you're only going to be 50, 60% of what you are on your best day,
and
your best day better be really good.
And you know what? Even the police officers don't train enough like that.
Yeah.
The nice thing about Prairie Fire, at least from what I've heard, was that they are going to work with the Nye County sheriffs.
That is awesome.
Because Front Sight never would. They would never.
But they did at the very end. They had started.
That was because it was closing down. Piazza was gone.
Yeah.
They let them use it one time, I think.
That's a huge advantage, and I think that's a huge feather in the cap
for
because we all know different people in the Nye County Sheriff's Office, and you want them to have advantages, and we want to retain the good deputies, the good officers, and not have them ever think about going back over the hill or going to some other department. And being so close to a world-class or a potentially now, again, world-class facility that has a heart to come alongside of our Nye County Sheriff's Office would be a huge thing to retain, I think, and to draw, qualified applicants to work for us.
Absolutely.
And the instructors were great.
Yeah.
I mean, out there, the training, I always felt that for the beginner or for the novice, the training was probably the best in the country. I felt.
That's awesome.
Now there's high tech training that you can go to. That's of course much better. But for most people, that the training was fabulous, and I hope they keep doing it because if they don't, I can find some land.
Yeah, you might have
We
to.
might do it.
So when you do your live training classes, what does that kind of look like to a listener who might not be able to envision that?
Well, usually somebody will call. They want some training because they just bought a gun or they don't know which gun to buy.
Yeah.
It's much better if they haven't bought a gun, because then we've got a lot of different guns they can shoot, and we don't rent them or anything. We just let them shoot. We charge $50 an hour. Most of the time that includes the ammo.
That's cool.
We go over some handgun safety at the house before we go out there,
Yeah.
which is not part of that hour. And then we go out to Bella Vista, set up the targets, and do some shooting. And we can do 2 at a time because both Nancy and I are certified pistol instructors.
Nice.
And so usually we start out with a 22.
Yeah,
And then
that's probably the first thing I ever fired in my life.
Working our way up. Well, you got to get the basics down: the grip and the sight alignment, and how to hold a gun, how to do your isometric tension. There's a lot of things to it that people don't realize.
Yeah.
And
Well, and one thing,
stance.
more than a few people think that they can come to the CCW class and learn to shoot. And that's, you're qualifying. So even though we can help, and I do have the remedial target.
Yeah.
So I take the ladies, or usually it's ladies that are unsure or comfortable, but I don't have time to teach you. I can help you, but I don't have time to teach you. So we highly recommend, if you're going to take the class, to come and spend an hour or 2 with us beforehand, because it's very, especially the ladies who've never shot before, and all of a sudden you're in a line with all these people shooting and you don't know what you're doing, and it's not fun, and it's not fun for them, and it's not fun for us. So I highly recommend people don't expect to learn to shoot at anybody's CCW class, not just ours.
And the thing with us, safety is a very big deal.
Yeah.
Really, really a big deal. There's a lot of instructors that do CCW classes that do them by themselves. We don't take over more than 20 people in a class. We usually end up with between 16 and 20.
Yeah.
And when we go out there, we will have Nancy, myself, and at least 3 other range officers.
Okay. And how often do you do?
Once a month.
Once a month, usually.
Sometimes twice a month if there's enough
demand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously I was going to get into gun safety as part of your name. That was going to be, then obviously that's going to be a huge aspect of it.
Yeah.
And
well, we try to focus on the 4 safety rules.
Right.
Always, but we had a guy walk into the house at this last class, and I said, "Oh, you've got a revolver." And I said, "It's not loaded, is it?" And he said, "Oh no, you want to see?" And he had it out before I could. And and then he for some reason puts the muzzle of his gun right in the palm of his hand.
Yeah.
So we had a little chat right then about gun safety.
And I sent out an email the week before the class that says, "This is what you need to do. Bring your gun in a holster, unload it, and do not take it out until you're on the range and instructed to do so."
Yeah. That's frightening. Yeah. Especially with revolvers, because a lot of them, you're not going to have a lot of safety features. If you happen to have a revolver loaded, it's quite easy to kind of discharge that thing for sure.
Yeah. So we had a little chat about the safety rules.
We haven't, in all the years we've been doing it now, we've never had anybody shoot themselves.
No accidents yet. Good.
No
Keep
accidents. Thank you, Lord.
So, yeah.
So right now you about 5 years in Pahrump, is that about right?
4.5.
4.5, almost
July
5
will be
years.
5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are I know you kind of came here with the idea of retirement, but obviously you're back in the swing of working a lot. So what are some of the goals of the organization? Where do you see the Blackstones in, say, 3 to 5 years?
We're old. We're old. We hope we're still here.
I won't tell you how old I am, but I'm old enough to not be working at all. And if I can do 1 class a month, and that's to make some holsters and teach some people to shoot, I'm happy with that.
Okay.
And we love teaching. We love teaching people.
But if Prairie Fire doesn't step up, well, it depends, because it might be expensive. If I could find land, I would seriously consider and probably do something very similar to what Frontside did on their 4-day handgun class.
Wow.
And I could probably do it for half the price.
Well, that would be something.
Yes.
There would be demand for that.
But the land is hard to find. I mean, I talked to BLM, and I can lease land from them, but I can't. It won't be mine exclusively.
Okay.
So in other words, they would say, okay, you can have this section of land, and I could go set up my targets. But if I leave them there, anybody can go out and use them. Well,
right.
I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to buy the land, and I don't know.
Yeah, that would be something. Yeah, please keep
I don't know if I want to spend that money to do that, Remember, I'm old.
You're old, only as old as you feel.
Well, we think Prairie Fire is we're hoping that it's going to be
step up and have that offering.
Yeah, what we're hoping it'll be.
Because, it's sometimes you look at the grandest scale, it's like, okay, well, some of the stuff sounds really cool if you are a Hollywood A-list actor or, a Wall Street trader and you have millions in the bank and you can afford to do some of these things. But what I understood is that they were going to have the whole gamut of different opportunities for.
It seems like it's
especially for locals. I would hope,
Seems like it's a moving target.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again,
I've
too
heard
many
all
moving parts.
kinds of different things, and it changes. Well, for example, with Bill, boom.
Yeah.
Somebody's gone. One of the things that we both had in common that we really said is I love teaching, and so did he.
Yeah.
And he said that was a fun thing to do.
Yeah, well, hopefully he lands on his feet.
That's the biggest thrill for me, is seeing people progress.
Yeah.
And I love, and we've taken people, we've met people when we first got here that came to our class before they ever bought a gun. They now have several guns, and you know what? They are now proficient with their handguns.
Yeah.
For me, that's great self-satisfaction.
I would say so.
And taking a lot of people from total fear
right.
to respect, because it is a tool, and you have to respect it for what it can do.
Yeah.
But they're comfortable, and it's all good now.
Yeah, and you're putting that out there. You're imparting that knowledge, and then maybe when that person, ends up teaching their children, or the impact it can have in the future, and maybe one of those branches that you helped cultivate will end up being the person that saves a law-abiding, good person with a gun that saves somebody's life one day because of maybe some of the values you first instilled, further up that chain.
Wonderful.
Actually, that did happen. One of our students in Oregon stopped a bad guy from robbing a Subway in the morning with a knife. He had a knife at the teller and said, "Give me
Cashier.
Clerk, whatever,
yeah.
And give me your money." And he had his handgun. He's watching. He's like, "I can't believe this is happening." He pulled out his gun and pointed right at him. And he said, "Drop the knife." The guy didn't do it. He says, "I'm telling you, drop it."
Yeah.
The guy didn't do it. He cocked the hammer. He said, "Last chance." The guy ran out.
Oh, thank goodness.
And he called me on the phone like 3 hours later to tell me about it. And I'm like, "Did you stop shaking yet?" He says, "No."
Yeah, I bet not.
And I said, "Did you call the police?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Why not?"
Yeah.
And he said, "Because the owner of the store didn't want to." I said, "You should have.
Yeah.
You've got to."
That's a good. That's
Because
I guess a good
otherwise, he
universal
could call
practice.
the police and say, "You pulled the gun on me."
Right, which is a felony almost everywhere.
Yeah.
And
then the person who calls the police by default is the victim.
They get the benefit of the doubt, and then the burden of proof would be on the law-abiding gun owner. Yeah.
So he learned something there. And then we've had a lot of different calls. We could go on forever on different stories, but it feels good to hear your students call you and say, "Man, I'm glad we did this or that."
Because you never know. Because I'd be racking my brain thinking, well, what if that person wasn't there? And a lot of times, sometimes people are robbing you. They do want money, and they're not there to kill you. But that happens.
Yeah.
Someone can die in a robbery attempt, or someone holding a knife up to them. So
yeah.
It's good. It's good to know that at least that cemented it and that saved the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into a couple other questions. I know, and we talked loosely, and this is more me selfishly wanting to bring up topics to you, because I like to kind of have my gripes on certain things. But I know along the campaign trail, we talked about some different issues. The first one I wanted to, and it was kind of, you gave me a good counterintuitive response, and I didn't really expect it, because I'm a big ardent proponent of constitutional carry, in that eventually I would like our state of Nevada, and basically in a utopia, every state kind of going to the core of what I think the Second Amendment says is that shall not be infringed. And you can construe an argument that by having to get a permit and things like that is kind of infringing. I mean, you can make an argument on that.
Yeah.
And when you responded, I was kind of encouraged, because you're kind of like me. As laws might change, the policies change, your business model can adapt and change. But you mentioned one thing to me, and it stuck with me, that the need for good training is never going to go by the wayside, regardless of if there was a constitutional carry law in place or not. So,
well, that was why the NRA was invented, was to train the North on how to use firearms, because they didn't know.
Yeah,
the South knew how to use firearms.
Yeah.
And so the NRA was developed to train the North. And of course now it's developed into a political organization.
Right.
But yeah, training is crucial. And there was 100 years ago, well, maybe 150, 120 years ago, everybody had a gun in their house.
Yeah.
Everybody did. And they knew how to use it. The kids were taught about the gun. They were taught it wasn't a toy.
Healthy respect and fear.
It was not a problem. And then somewhere between now and then, our society has changed to where people think that the police are going to protect them, and they don't need to protect themselves. Yeah. And so I would say less than 50% of the houses in the country have guns. Probably most of those are in the cities. Yeah. And that's why we need to have guns, and that's why we do need the training.
Yeah.
Back in the country, I remember we used to go out when I was a kid and just shoot as a family.
And criminals know that too. And we were talking before we started recording about, an armed society being a polite society, and that healthy fear of knowing that another person's armed and able to protect themselves will deter crime, and it will ultimately it affects behavior, I think. And I think you could probably date this back to the 1800s, where maybe murders with handguns aren't exactly like what we see in the Wild West movies, or the glorification of different crimes and Billy the Kid and all this stuff. It wasn't really that bad, and you're talking in a time when almost every household would have had multiple guns. People carried places, and people weren't murdering each other. But somehow our culture now is constantly, in the media, is constantly blaming.
They're blaming the gun.
And not the evil of man.
Cain killed Abel with a rock, did he?
Yeah.
Yeah. And David killed Goliath with a rock.
Yeah.
It ain't the rock.
It ain't the rock. Yeah. The rock is a neutral party. The rock is a tool, right?
That's right.
Yeah, you can use your tool for evil, and you can use it
for good.
Use it for good. Yeah. Absolutely. That's well put. I'm going to steal that one.
Well, and it's not just the shootings, the mass shootings, but it's the accidents that should not happen. And if people were trained and did know the basic safety rules, always unload your gun before you.
I show a couple
and basic stuff.
I show a couple of videos in my class. And one guy is he's either a rent-a-cop or a cop, and he comes in the gun store, and sadly the gun is loaded behind the counter. Nobody knows. They give him the gun. He doesn't check it. Nobody checks it. He shoots himself right through the hand.
Oh my goodness.
And it's just pure stupidity, not paying attention to the safety rules, or certain, something like a guy named Alec Baldwin, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Not paying attention to the safety rules.
Because you look back, in rural areas, even up until now, probably, or even everywhere in the country, maybe 100 some odd years ago, like your average, 10-year-old would have a better command and respect and ability to use a firearm than even someone like me would. And I have a healthy respect for firearms, but it hasn't been an emphasis, I think, or instilled as a value as this quote unquote progress we've been experiencing like the past 30, 40, 50 years, which, depending upon what kind of progress are we talking here, in some ways it's always just we're going to heck in a handbasket. And, people don't realize that the one thing that we need to do is preserve the Constitution, preserve our rights under the Constitution. And I just feel like our leaders aren't really there. They're not with us on some of these big items, and they're not with us on some of the smaller items. And we talked about one of the items that you brought to my attention when I was running a campaign, and it was a big deal to you, and it became a big deal to me about the veterans plates, because I come from I'm not a veteran myself, but you are. I know lots of veterans in my family outside, my friends like you, and I don't know if our listeners know this, but even right now, the veteran plates that you see on the streets, for all intents and purposes, the license plates that you see on the streets are actually able to be almost picked up by anybody and everybody, since the only criteria is what Dan is just having a relational connection with veteran and you're able to get
I'm not 100% sure on exactly how it was, but you almost have to be related to a veteran.
Okay.
And then you can get the plate. When I moved here in 2018, I wanted a veteran's plate for my van, and I had to show my DD-214 to get it.
Yeah.
And I got it, no big deal, because I carry a copy of it in my wallet.
Right.
And then when I bought my Jeep, that was in 2021, 21, and I went in and I wanted to get a veteran's plate, and I started to pull it out of my wallet, and she says, well, you don't need to do that. And I says, how do you know if I'm a veteran or not? And she said, you don't need to be a veteran to get a veteran's plate. And I said, what?
Yeah. I would have never thought it either until you brought it to my attention.
That angered me when I heard that. And then she says, no, that's not the way that. I says, who made that rule? And of course she didn't know, And so I wrote a letter to whoever was in charge of the DMV, and I got a call, and she was responding to the call, and then I got a letter back that said, the legislature changed that years ago, and you want to get it changed, talk to them. So that was why, Mr. Matt.
Yeah.
That I told you.
Yeah. That's to
get that changed.
And on its surface, it seems like such a minor. It seems like such a minor and dare I say bipartisan common sense thing that you would think almost every person on either side of the aisle, whether you're Democrat, you're Republican, Independent, whatever you are, would the veteran the position of being a veteran should have a certain kind of reverence. And I think when you see that plate, my assumption was always there's a veteran driving that vehicle or being driven in that vehicle. And now maybe a surviving spouse, but not me as a son of a veteran. When I never served, I should have no ability to get one.
You should.
And I hope because if our legislators can get these little things right, then we can trust them with the bigger things. But when they're not doing some of these little things right,
can you send this podcast to the legislature?
I might. I will,
because it's stupid.
Yeah.
It's wrong, is what it is.
And it's an
to
easy
me,
fix.
the DMV and they're encouraging
stolen valor.
I think
stolen valor.
It's not that much different than watching somebody, in full military attire that's not theirs walking in the mall, and people are giving them reverence when they stole it. It's not that much different than that.
It's wrong.
Yeah,
you should have. And then the other thing is they charge me extra,
right,
for a veteran's plate.
Yeah,
that's another fight. Let's just get veterans having veterans plates first.
Yeah, I think
I think it's not right.
I think every veteran is entitled to it, but I sure as heck I'm not entitled to it. And I would hate to think there's people out there that want the fringe benefits of having a veteran's license plate, so they can.
Yeah. That's like you'll never see me wear a hat that says Vietnam veteran. Because I did not go to Vietnam.
Oh, in the theater of
and so the only person that has a right to wear that hat, in my opinion, is someone who served in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Now, I was in the service during the Vietnam era.
Right.
But I am not a Vietnam veteran.
Gotcha.
That just do things right.
Yeah,
of course, the politicians, they were generals, and didn't Hillary run under gunfire and all that stuff?
Oh yeah. The helicopter was under full-on assault, evidently.
Now we got a Republican in New York now that lied about all his stuff.
Yeah,
was out. What's his name?
I forgot, but it's a shame. But you got to call it. We got to call the bad behavior out, regardless of who does it.
He's a liar.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Yeah, I think that's why we got to really, and I say it all the time. It really matters who we vote for, who we support. And especially at the local levels, because I said on a prior podcast, the Speaker of the House matters, different things matter, but if we have bad officials here at the local level, the smallest parts of government that don't have our good in mind, it will affect our day-to-day life a lot more than Kamala Harris not visiting the border when that's like her only job. But I think
that's true.
Well, I really appreciate you guys coming on. I guess we're kind of running out of time here on the podcast. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing this. Sorry it took a little bit longer than the beginning of January to get you on here, but you were at the very top of the list for guests, and I appreciate you coming by. And I hope to have you two on the podcast here in the near future. And on behalf of Dan and Nancy Blackstone, I'm going to plug their website first before I bid adieu. What is the website again? I know we talked about it earlier on. I don't want to fumble it.
Well, before I say the website, Matt, thank you for having us on. And if you want to have us back, just let us know. This has been fun.
Absolutely.
It's BGS for Blackstone Gun Safety, so bgsnevada.com.
bgsnevada.com.
Or call 775-990-9393.
Gotcha. And all that contact information for the Blackstones will be on our website at the NevadaPatriot.com as well, so you can always visit the site. It'll stay up there. And the show will be archived there, so if you miss it live on 97.7 FM, if you're listening to it now and you want to hear it again in the next hour, just tune right back in and get on the website, watch that video again, because it will be on there live. Thank you again, Dan and Nancy Blackstone. Until next time, listeners, God bless.
Thank you.
Veterans Crisis Line. Dial 988. Veterans Crisis Line. Dial 988. Then press 1. Someone is available who cares. Someone is available who will listen. Someone is available who will help. Veterans Crisis Line. 988.
You've just spent some of the best minutes of your life hanging out with Matt Sadler at the Nevada Patriot Podcast. Thank you for listening. Tell a friend and join us next time. After you catch your breath, check out the NevadaPatriot.com for more content, advertising opportunities, and to give listener feedback. That website again is the NevadaPatriot.com. Until next time, Patriots, stay American.